Hello, my name is Julia. Today we're going to be painting this fun little color Sunday painting. So I am from Colorado and this painting is based on this day up on the Mesa, which is a place in Colorado. They do Color Sunday and it's usually around the end of September, and it's where all the aspen trees are changing colors and it's absolutely gorgeous. Reds and yellows and greens, and everyone goes up there to ride the ski lift and take pictures. So it's just really beautiful scenery. So this is based on that. This is a painting for absolute beginners. You don't need any experience whatsoever. It's very easy. We are painting in acrylic paints. Today I am using blue acrylics, but feel free to use whatever acrylic paints that you may have. And we're gonna be learning some really easy techniques today. So just a little bit of a gradient for a sky, some really easy, simple mountains that you can do that look kind of realistic without a lot of effort or a lot of detail, and then just kind of a fuzzy background, and then just learning some fun little aspen tree techniques. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. All right, so we do have an 11 by 14 canvas, and we're gonna be starting off with our size 12 bristle brush. So go ahead and dip that in your water and get it wet, and then remove any extra water. And we're gonna start off with just straight blue paint. We're gonna do the sky, and we're gonna be doing a gradient. So you wanna start at the top of your canvas, and you're doing horizontal brush strokes all the way from one side of the canvas to the other. And then wipe off any extra blue paint, and without cleaning your brush, just grab white and go down below about 4 inches, and you can start brushing up into the blue. And then you can just kind of keep moving up and down. And if you want it to be more smooth, you can also use your 1-inch flat brush and go over it again. The reason I don't just start off with the 1-inch flat is because it can lay paint on very thickly, and if you want it to dry sometime this year, then you might want to use the size 12 bristle brush. So this brush can be used in 2 ways. So now we're going to use the edge to outline our mountains. So the key to mountains is making very wide triangles. You don't want them really tall and pointy. And you can have some going off the edge of the canvas. I just try to make them all different sizes, and I want one that's going to be my main mountain that's going to be a lot larger than the rest. Now we're going to start filling in the bottom areas. So these kind of groupings of colors are aspen trees and then kind of foliage, pine trees, bushes, things like that. So we're going to start off with our size 12 bristle brush and just yellow paint. And you can first just fill it in, and then you want to stamp over it to give it more texture. And then you can do red along the tops and stamp over that. The more you stamp over and kind of drag it down, the more they'll blend together. But this is basically the tops of aspen trees that we're seeing off in the distance in the background. So you want it to be kind of uneven and kind of messy. After you get those in there, then you're gonna grab some green paint, and I'm gonna mix red in with my green, and that's gonna neutralize it and make it darker. And I'm gonna fill in the rest of the white canvas that's showing down here on the bottom, and then I'm gonna stamp over it to give it that texture. I'll stamp right up slightly on top of the yellow and red areas. And I'm going to do a couple layers because I don't want to see too much of the canvas showing through. A little bit is okay, but for the most part I really want to fill it in. And then if you want to blend it even more, you can wipe your brush off on the side so that there's barely any of your dark green paint on there, and you can stamp up into the yellow and red areas even more just to kind of blend it together. So next we're going to be filling in our mountains. So we're going to use the 1-inch flat. And I'm starting off with just straight blue paint, and now I'm using my darker blue, my Phthalo Blue, and I'm filling them in, and notice the direction of the brush strokes. So they are diagonal. They're starting at the top left side of the mountain peak, and you're dragging it down towards the right. And the key is that you want to wiggle your brush just ever so slightly. It's not like you're zigzagging, but you're kind of slightly going up, then going down, then maybe a little bit more down, and then up again. You want it to be really random. You can also add some purple in, you can add some red in, you can add a little bit of green in. When you add red, it's going to make it more neutral and a little bit darker. And so that's what I'm definitely doing to the tops there. And now we're going to add the snow. So if you feel more comfortable, you can use your detail brush and do kind of a very messy, jagged line down the center of each of them, but you don't really need that. You can get right in there while the paint is wet, clean out your 1-inch flat brush, get quite a bit of white paint on it, and it's all about the angle of your brush. So the end of your handle needs to be close to the canvas. If your handle is perpendicular to the canvas, you're just going to dig off that blue paint. So you're just kind of laying it on very thick like you're icing a cake, and you want to kind of wobble your brush so that it kind of touches down to the canvas and then lifts up, touches down and then lifts up, so that you get very, very kind of random and unusual marks. Up close it's going to look kind of messy, but from far away it does have the appearance of mountains and snow. So then we're going to switch to our 1/2-inch flat brush, and we're going to start adding in our aspen trees. You might want to wait until your mountains dry a little bit before you come in with this step, since it's going to be white paint. We're going to start off using the flat side of our brush, and then as you go upwards you turn your brush sideways so that you end up using the edge of your brush and it kind of comes to a point. So you want the aspen trees thicker at the bottom and thinner at the top. Then you can dip one side into black paint. So most of the brush has white, and then you just dip one corner in black and pick which side you want the shadows to be on. And you can drag that up the tree while the white paint is still wet, and that's going to give them shadow, that's going to give them dimension, and they're going to start to have a little bit of form. So you can keep going over it as many times as you'd like, getting it thicker and thicker or darker and darker. And then whenever you're ready, you can start adding on branches. So I'm using the same brush, but I'm using the edge now, and it's basically like you're adding on the letter Y. So you can go down a few inches from where you started and take off from the tree trunk. You don't want to start out and go in if this is your first time painting trees. So you want to start on the tree trunk and branch off from there. And then if you wanted to add shadows, you can either paint black paint underneath each branch, or you can dip your brush in white and black at the same time, and that can kind of add shadows as you go. You can also use a different brush for the branches if you want to. You can use a pointed round brush, your little detail brush, whatever you feel the most comfortable with. You can add on lots of little baby branches too if you want. When you're ready, you can start adding on details to your aspen trees. So you can use your detail brush and some black paint and do horizontal brush strokes. So they're very little lines, and you want them very random. Maybe some right next to each other. Maybe there's a spot where there aren't any. Very, very random. That's going to make it look more like nature. And you can also add on dots, or those things that look like eyes on aspen trees. So you can make kind of a messy little mark, a messy dot, and then drape a line over the cross of the top of it. And that will look like an eye on an aspen tree. You can also dip your brush in white and black at the same time and do some marks with that, and that can make it look even more realistic as well. So I'm just going through and finishing up those details. You can add a little bit of a white brush stroke across the top of the eye, and that can make it look like the tree is kind of folding out and the light's hitting it, because light is going to hit whatever is kind of aiming upward. So if there's a part of the tree that's protruding, that's where we're going to see the white on top. So now I'm getting in there with some leaves. So you can use your size 12 bristle brush and start off with just yellow paint, and we're doing a stamping technique. So if you use just yellow, you're going to see how the background shows through because the paint is translucent. So that's okay. Leaves are kind of translucent, but also you're going to want some that are more opaque. So then you can mix some white and yellow together to make it more opaque and you won't see the background. Then I'm going to take my brush, and I want to make sure I don't have too much white in there or it will start to look peachy. So I'm going to have yellow and red, and I'm going to dip just one side in red. And I'm using a stamping technique, so lifting your brush and setting it down repeatedly. And I'm stamping little clusters. So you want to layer them on top of each other. So you want to start at the top part of the tree, that's going to be in the back, and as you work your way down, you're going to layer them in front of each other. You can keep going back and grabbing more red paint. You can add more red down into your background, making it a little bit more vibrant. And that's pretty much the last step. So whenever you're finished, take a step back, look at it from far away. You might want to add a little bit more paint in the back. Thank so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.